Welcome everybody to this webinar from the Rec Code Manager, a refresher on EMAR and the different aspects contained within EMAR. For the avoidance of doubt, we are recording today's webinar, so your voices and your face, if you put your camera on, will all be on the recording, which will be on YouTube, the Rec Code Manager's YouTube channel, and on the Rec portal in the days following the event, so that those who couldn't make today will have access to the information that we go through. On this slide, we have the three speakers that will be taking you through today's event. This is myself, Paul Rock. I'm the head of communications within the Rec Code Manager team, and you'll also see with their cameras on Roz and JP from the Code Manager's technical services team, and they'll be carrying out a demonstration of the different aspects of EMAR throughout this event. Just a few bits of housekeeping before we do get going. I would ask that you keep your videos and your microphones switched off unless you are a guest speaker today, just to make sure there's no background noise, to make things easier for everyone to participate. Obviously, do feel free to put your microphone on if you have a question that you want to ask, although we will be using Slido today as well to help you field your questions and us understand the questions that are coming in and prepare answers for you. I've mentioned the event recording. We'll stop for Q&A throughout the session. We'll have a session at the end for questions and answers as well. On the next slide, I'm going to give you the link to Slido, so you're able to go to slido.com and enter the code 381158, and that will take you into the Slido event. For some reason, that's not showing what it usually does, showing the QR code for you. I would allow you to usually do a QR code, but for some reason that's not appearing today. So yeah, if you can go to slido.com and enter the code 3811158, you'll be able to leave your questions there, or use the team's hands up function, and I'll monitor for hands up throughout the day and send your questions to Roz or to JP. All right, next slide is the agenda, and I think I'll pass over to Roz if you want to take us through what the plan for today is.
Cool. So today's plan, we're going to show you the Digital Navigator and IBM Jazz, which collectively form the energy market architecture repository. So we've got the demonstration followed by a Q&A, but as Paul's mentioned, feel free to put questions in Slido or pop your hand up throughout the session and raise questions at any point that occur to you. If we move to the next slide. So we are going to be showing you the system rather than being slide focused today, but we're just going to start off with a brief slide saying what is the energy market architecture repository. So it's essentially a repository. It holds the retail energy code schedules and the REC data specification. The EMAR currently has two systems that sit within it. So when REC first went live, we just had the IBM Jazz side. So this is an off-the-shelf IBM Jazz system that contains the REC legal text and the data specification in digitalized format. And it has functionality to do things such as run reports and show processes in diagrammatic format. When IBM Jazz first went live, we got quite a bit of feedback from users who told us they'd like a simpler, more intuitive tool. So we created the Digital Navigator to address users with those requirements. And this is a bespoke system built in Azure that provides a simpler, more intuitive system, but it does have somewhat less functionality than the IBM Jazz side. And we're going to start this session by showing you the Digital Navigator and then moving on to the IBM Jazz element. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague JP to start us off with Digital Navigator.
Thanks, Roz. So today I'll be walking you through a few examples on the Digital Navigator to show you how really simple and intuitive the platform is to use to view either the code schedules or the data spec. So let me just share my screen here. Roz or Paul, if you can let me know if that's popped up on your end.
Yeah, we can see that.
Cool, thank you. So first things first, how do we access the Digital Navigator? Well, you'll have to be signed into your Rec Portal account. And once you're on the home page, on the tab on the left-hand side here, you should be able to see the Digital Rec and EMAR button at the bottom of the list. So we simply click onto that, and that should direct us to the EMAR homepage. Okay, I was not logged on earlier, so let me just log in now. Sorry. So yeah, usually if I was logged in, signed into my Rec Portal account, it should directly take me to the EMAR homepage without having to log in again. So on the top here, I should be able to see the Digital Navigator button, and that should take us to the Digital Navigator platform. And once that page is loaded, you'll be able to notice that everything is laid out in a more organized way compared to IBM Jazz for ease of trying to search for something. So before we go into our examples, a few things to note. To toggle between either the code schedules or the data spec, you simply click on either tab, and you should know which one is selected when it turns dark green. And the same goes for the two ways of searching, which is either through the dashboard or the detailed search function. So today we have a total of 4 examples prepared for you. We're going to start with the code schedules and dashboard. So again, I want to make sure that they're selected, and the way to know that is when it's highlighted dark green. So the first thing you'll notice on this page is that the schedules are not in order. Instead, they are organized in different categories. And here we have 6 different buckets for you: governance and MISC, green deal and theft, meter point management, switching, metering arrangements, as well as party management. So for this example, let's say I want to view the address management schedule. I'd simply go into the meter point management category and click onto schedule 29. And that should take me to the main page of the schedule where I could view the different versions, implementation date, as well as reason. And by clicking on a version of the schedule, the page should automatically refresh and present the version that you have selected. And on the left-hand side here, we can see a tab which you can scroll through the different sections of the schedule. And to go onto that section, you just simply click onto it. So for example, here, I'd click on ensuring MPL address quality, and that should automatically direct me to the section where this is at in the schedule. And you'll notice the download button here. And an important note is that when you click this download button, it does download the whole schedule and not the specific section that you are in. And to go back to the home page, you simply click on the Rec logo on the left-hand side of your screen. And that was the first example that I was going to show you. So you can see how really simple and intuitive the Digital Navigator is to use when trying to search for something. And so now we're going to go through the detailed search function. And as a text states here, you can enter any term which you are looking for, and it will show you all the clauses which contain that term. And it will also notify you if it can't find that term. And if you know the specific schedule which you want to search, then you can use this filter here. So for example, let's say I want to look at the interpretations and definition schedule. I'd simply select that, and I want to, within that schedule, locate anything that has the term party. So I'd simply type in party, and it should present all the different text which references the word party within the interpretations and definitions schedule. So I can scroll down, and once I found what I was searching for, I could simply click onto it, and it should automatically direct me to that section within the code schedules document. And as that is loading, you will be able to locate the download button again, and that will not download that specific section of the schedule, but the whole schedule itself. So that was how to navigate this code schedules within those two different search functions. I'll pause and stop for a while and see if there are any questions. I do not have a second screen, so Paul and Roz,
That's all right,
just let me know.
Yeah, there has been a question asked on Slido. I'm not sure whether it you may not necessarily have the answer, JP. It's more to do with, I guess, process rather than the system, but perhaps there's someone on the call that may have a response. Change control in the rec portal doesn't include the DTC changes, and it should. Holding rel data in two different places isn't helpful. Info is missing. Can it be merged? I'm not sure if there's an answer on the call that anyone might have. Otherwise, we can take it away. But Roz, did you have a?
I think that one might be one we take away. Could you just repeat the DTC bit? Change control and
So
DTC.
change control in rec portal doesn't include DTC changes, and it should. Holding rel data in two different places isn't helpful. Info is missed. Can it be merged?
I'll take the rel. We can take the rel one away. On the DTC side, I'll show you the release tab when we go through IBM Jazz, and that might help you see what's been included in releases relating to the data specification, including items that are not owned by rec but are administered through other codes, and see if that addresses that particular question. And if it doesn't, re-raise it, and we'll see if we can address it.
Thanks, Roz. Kirsty has a hand raised as well. Kirsty.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, because that was my question. We found it in the EMAR change release control for February. That gets updated quite late. The point is that if you looked in the change control on the rec portal side, it's February release, this is what's in it. Doesn't mention anything about the EMAR change. So, and the link it gave to the change request that I suppose was loosely linked to the 5 new data flows and the new data items that also went out in the February release, didn't actually detail that either. So not massively helpful. And I was just thinking having the release info in multiple different places isn't massively helpful. Like in the old world, Marasco world, we'd have it all in one place.
So what we're doing is we are engaging with the other code owners of the data spec items, so Dacusa, Exoserve, and looking at how we can provide better information on changes that are not governed under rec but do impact on the rec data spec. So I can pick that up with you separately after this session, what else we're looking at to try and improve that information that's provided there. But I do note your point about the portal. So that the EMAR, because it contains the data specification, does include changes to non-rec items that are held in the data specification. So CUSA and BSC changes, but that isn't published on the rec portal because that's pure rec. But maybe that's something we do need to look at, whether we should bring that alignment in.
Yeah, because it's included in the EMAR, which is under the rec. So you've got it. It's just in a different place. So it's just more, it went out in the same release. So the release in February included multiple things. It just, the details are in 2 different places that you get to via the rec. You could argue you get to the EMAR through the rec portal. It's all in the same place, but it's held differently. So even if it was just a footnote that just said, oh yeah, by the way, there's also a whole bunch of data flow changes. Click here to the EMAR release management. That would have given people a hint, but it didn't. And it was just more of it would be incredibly useful if you could at least give people a hint, because stuff can get easily missed if they're not aware it's there. That's kind of, it's difficult because the Slido doesn't give you enough characters for me to have explained why, but
that's really useful feedback. No, I definitely see that would be valuable. I will take that one away and see what we can do, and I will also reach out to you with some other things we're looking to do to improve data spec cross code changes.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Okay, thank you very much.
There's no further questions at the moment, JP.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Roz, for picking that up. And yeah, Kirsty, thank you for your feedback. We'll take that offline. So for the next section of the Digital Navigator demonstration, we're going to walk through the data spec, which is very similar to that of the code schedules. So again, you can search either through the dashboard or the detailed search. So to begin with, we'll go through the dashboard, and similar to the code schedule, you'll see that everything is categorized in 6 different buckets. So we have the data spec catalog, the data spec documents, data access matrices, the meter product data table, data spec release information, and some guidance documents. And by simply clicking on what we are looking for, it should automatically direct me to an online PDF version of the document, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. And to simply download, you just click this button and a prompt should pop up asking you where in your computer you would like for the document to be downloaded. And to go back, we just click on the back arrow here, and it should take us back to the Digital Navigator.
JP, we can't see your screen. We can't see what's going on. Sorry, we can just still see the code schedule search screen.
Oh, okay.
I think it might be because you're sharing your window rather than your screen. You might want to just unshare and reshare with the sharing your whole screen rather than the window.
Okay, let me do that.
And just hope that no one sends you any incriminating messages while you're sharing your screen.
Can you see my screen now?
Not yet. I think it's loading.
Oh, now. Should be up.
Definitely loading something. Yeah, we can see the digital navigator now, the tab.
Okay, cool. So I'll go through the dashboard again. So we can see the different categories here. I think we have 6 different ones, and by clicking onto a document that I want to view, it should take me to an online PDF version of the document. And to download it, you just click on this button here. And like I said, a prompt will pop up asking you where on your desktop you'd want the document to be downloaded. And so we go back to the home page. So you could see the Digital Navigator all in all is quite simple and intuitive to use. And so for the final example, we're going to go through the search for something through the data spec using the detailed search function. And so as you can see here, you can search either the market message, scenario variant, or data item. And the complete list of results will be seen at the bottom of the page. So once you've selected either one of these, once you scroll down, you should be able to view all the different market messages, scenario variants, or data items. And we can filter it further by selecting the source and the target. So for example, I'd select the DNO as a source and the electricity supplier as the target. And once I scroll down, it should present all of the different market messages between those two parties. And once I found what I'm looking for, I just simply click on it. So let's take this one for example, and that should take me to the market message homepage where I could see the local catalog reference, the description, the version number, as well as some notes. And to view the contents of the market message, you simply scroll down and you would have to select a scenario variant. And we said that we wanted to search for the source to be a DNO as well as the target to be an electricity supplier. So we click onto that, and that should take us to a page where I could view the group ID, the group description, the range condition, the different levels, the data items, and data item role. And if I want to view some more information on a specific data item, I just simply click on it. So for this example, I'll click onto MPAN Core, and that should take me to its information page where I'll be able to view all these different characteristics. And if I scroll down, I should be able to see all the different market messages that contain that specific data item. So yeah, that was the 4 examples I had on the Digital Navigator. I hope that was very easy to follow. But I think compared to the IBM Jazz, this is more useful and simple to use. So any questions?
Yeah, I've had one more question come through, JP, on Slido.
Yeah.
Parties that use Google Cloud-based systems can't access the data in EMAR. We can't get the detailed view. When will the Excel or alternate view be available? Is this a known issue or one that we've explored before?
It's one that was raised. I think it was first raised a few weeks ago. So my colleagues in our technical team are looking at what we can do to expand usage to those that use Google platforms, I believe it is. So if anyone else is using any other platforms, please let us know, and we'll do what we can to address those feedback comments. But we are aware that at the moment there is, I believe it's Google platforms can't access it at the moment.
Is it which document specifically is it that there's an issue accessing? Is it all documents stored on here, or are there specific documents? Don't know if you know that through Ros, or whether the person that has the issue is able to articulate it. But
I'm not myself aware. It's my colleagues in the technical team have had it flagged to them, something to investigate. So I'm sure they've got much more detail on what it is they're looking into. But I do know that there is a inability to access the platform on certain systems.
okay. All right, great. Couple more questions come through. Will the HTML format still be available for download?
Yes, the HTML format's there. If you go to the data specification tab, JP.
Yep.
There should be, it's the third one down in the data specification catalog table, HTML format.
No
So
plans to get rid of that, Ros?
No, no plans to remove the HTML format. We did send a survey out asking if parties were still using the full rec access database. So we know that the DTC access database is definitely being used, but we don't believe anyone's using the rec access database version. So we're looking at potentially withdrawing that and replacing it with an SQL solution that would hopefully meet more parties' needs. As yet, we haven't had anyone come back to that survey to say they are using that rec access database, but if you are, please do let us know.
One final question. When using detailed search, will it return both data flows and CSS messages, and later when released, the DIP-IF from the MHHS program?
Yes, the detailed search has all the messages in there. So if you were to go, JP, if you could pop over to detailed search, and if you were to search CSS, it should bring up all the CSS messages. So yeah, and if it's every item is in there and searchable.
And the second part of that question was whether it would include the DIP-IF for the MHHS program. Will that be included as well once it's available?
There is work underway to add MHHS flows. So yes, those MHHS flows will be in here as well once available.
Great news. Thanks, Ross. That's the only questions we have for the time being.
Well, thank
Here's
you.
an extra. Apologies. Are there some others in Slido? I think there's one saying we can see data spec 3.3.0, but only we're at 3.3.0, but only 3.2.0 seems to be shown. So if we head over to the data spec, JP, would you be able to, in the detailed search, pick one of the data items? Here we go. Yep, just any in the table. Okay, so can you see on the top right there, it says version chosen. Just scroll up for me, JP. Yeah, so there we go. You can see the versions there. So you could select 3.2.0, but it's automatically on live unless you choose to go to a previous version.
Sorry, you're quite right. For some reason, we have two different Slido instances happening today, which are some technical problems. But so there were a couple of further questions in the Slido instance on Teams. So one question: where can we find the pre-release versions of the data specifications?
So those I will. There's none published at the moment because we don't have any pre-releases. But when I go through IBM Jazz, I'll show you the table where they will live when we do have pre-release versions. But we don't. It's an empty table at the moment, a bit of a placeholder.
Get that covered. Is there an option for people who don't know or can't use the access functions?
Yes, so we have various different ways of viewing the data flow information. So there's the pages JP's just shown. There's the two access databases, the full rec one that has all the flows, and the DTC one. There's also the HTML files. So if you want everything in one big file, you can download the HTML file and open it in your browser, and it lists all the market messages and data items. And we're also looking at potentially, I mentioned before, replacing the rec access database with an SQL database so that there's a further way of what we call the machine readable way of absorbing the data. So we've got the human readable elements in the pages we've just seen, and we've got the machine readable access databases and potentially an SQL database if there is anyone who, or rather if there's demand for that amongst parties.
Thanks, Ross. A further question, where in the pre-release documentation can you see how the new data flow is configured and what the rules are around the data items?
So for the most recent release, the February release, what we did was signpost parties to the websites of the respective codes where those were approved. So it was the BSC and Acusa. We did get feedback that people wanted more information in their pre-release. So we are looking at, for the next release, how we can present that information all in one place with the changes all in a consistent format. So you'll find the information on the IBM Jazz platform in the pre-release table, and we're looking at how we can improve the presentation of that information, bring it all into one place.
And just finally, is there no way to view a market message easily to show the hierarchical levels of groups, under groups, etc.?
Just get a bit more details on that one. If JP, are you able to just go to the data spec and pick a flow? We scroll down to and pick one of the scenario variants. So this table here, it's designed on the old DTC approach where you've got the groups, and then for each group, so for group 0001, you've got level 1, you've got the MPAN core, which is mandatory, and then a couple of 3 optional items. Then you've got the next group below it. And you can see the range is 1 to many there. Is that the information that you were looking for, or is there additional information that's not easily accessible?
If the person who asked the question wants to unmute and elaborate, it'd be easier than typing, perhaps. Perhaps the question's been answered.
If you got any, feel free to type anonymously if you want further information on that one.
Fantastic. All right, there's no further questions for now or hands up at the moment. So I think we're moving over to the second demo now, are we, Ross?
We are, so I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, what's the message?
Yeah, the Slido code, just to remind people who want to go onto Slido to leave their questions, is the number is 3811158. So visit slido.com and enter the code 3811158.
Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
So in this next bit, we're going to look at the IBM Jazz element of EMAR. So this was the version, the side of it that originally went live, and has more functionality than Digital Navigator, but isn't necessarily so simply presented. Then I think JP's already demonstrated how to access. So from the rec portal, just click on Digital Rec and EMAR. And it'll take you through to the IBM Jazz system. You will need to be logged in. It's single sign-on between EMAR and the rec portal, so it's all the same account. And if you create a portal account, it'll take about 5 minutes to pass through before you can access EMAR. So within the system here, what we've got is a dashboard with a series of tabs. So we go from the schedules all the way along to the other rec documents. And I'm just going to give you a tour of the dashboard tab. So first up, we've got the schedule. Similar to what JP showed you, we have the groupings here. So we've sought to make it easy to find the schedules you're interested in by grouping them into relevant pots. And if we go and pick a schedule, so let's have a look at metering operations. And what we've got here, we've got a views tab. So I'm just going to collapse that by clicking here. And similar to what we have in Digital Navigator, you've got the schedule, you've got links to the definition. So if you were to hover over a definition, it'll pop up and tell you what that means. And then you can scroll down and you've got all of the text. So one thing you can do with Digital Navigator, with IBM Jazz, is there's quite a lot of text in this schedule. If I just wanted to see the headings so that I could figure out which location in the document I needed to go to, you can click up more actions here, and on show full hierarchy, you can pick show level 1. And what that does is it collapses all the text underneath their respective headings, and everywhere you can see a little arrow, you can collapse out again. So for example, there we can see little arrows here, and then you can, through this process, get to a particular area you're interested in. So this is a potentially quicker way of finding information if you know it's in a schedule, but you're not quite sure where about, and the schedule's very, very long. And you can also see here, it's showing 42 of the artifacts. So each row or paragraph table has been given an artifact number, and it's currently showing 46 out of the 472 of those artifacts, which equates to a paragraph or a table. And then I can take that off again. So just go back to show full hierarchy. We can also filter the schedule. So at the moment I'm showing 100% of the lines. If I wanted to only show ones with the word supplier in, I can do that. And now I've got a much shorter schedule. 132 of the 472 lines have the term supplier in, so you can more quickly find clauses that are of relevance to you through that filter. IBM Jazz will remember when you filtered, so if you were to log off and come back in a few weeks' time, you might find that your schedule's still quite short relative to all the information in there because the filter's still on. So just once you've finished with it, if you just remember to clear all filters and reset, then you get the full text back again. So that's the schedules. And if I want to go back to the dashboard, I can just hit dashboard again at the top here, and it'll take me straight back to the schedules one. And pause. Any questions on the schedules?
There's a question, but I think it's more general EMAR than the schedules, but perhaps we can answer it now. And that's whether the market-wide half-hourly settlement code changes will be going or made available via EMAR.
I would have to consult my colleagues who are working on market half-hourly settlement. I would assume so, but I couldn't say for sure. But we can take that one away and find that out for you.
Yeah, I think there are probably some changes that are consequential on the rec and will be being made to rec products that will be naturally made available. It's worth noting we're actually not quite live yet, but we're rolling out a new sort of committee workspace. Many of you will be familiar with the committee spaces that exist on the rec portal itself. There's a new market-wide half-hourly settlement advisory group committee space that's going to be rolled out, that's going to contain some of the evolving sort of changes with respect to market-wide half-hourly settlement. So over the course of the coming couple of weeks, there'll be some communications going out around what can be accessed via that committee site as well. But yeah, Roz, if you want to take the question away around availability, but it's worth bearing in mind that that site will exist as well.
Thanks, Paul. So next up, we've got the data specification. So this has the same layout as the Digital Navigator. Here is the pre-release table. So whenever we have a pre-release available, it will be published in this table here. And we do send notification out. I do have a data specification distribution list. So every time anything is published relating to the data specification, as well as the normal updates that would be in the rec bulletins, I do send a dedicated email to that list. If you'd like to be on that list, just pop it in the chat with your name, with your email address, and I will, or if you'd rather not do it in the chat, send us an email to the inquiries mailbox at REC, and we can get that added for you. This part of OpenJazz essentially has all the same functionality as Digital Navigator, but it doesn't have the ability to search in the same way that Digital Navigator does. So if you wanted to, for example, look for a data item, you could click on the data items here, and it will take you to a folder, data items folder, and then within that folder are the data items. It's potentially easier just to search up here than through the folder. So if I want to look for the J2331, and this will work whether you're using the old pre-rec numbers, so the D flow numbers or the J numbers, whichever you use, it'll recognize them. And then you can open page, and similar to Digital Navigator, you've got the information there. So if I go back to the dashboard, next we have the market scenarios. So these are process diagrams. So what these do is give you a visual representation of all the processes in the rec. So those are the tables that have a trigger, a from and to, and an action. If I pick one example, so let's look at change of map. And what you'll have is a series of swim lanes showing the parties involved in a particular process. So you've got the trigger that kicks off the process. So in this case, there's a change of meter asset provider. So the MEM would provide notification of that change to MPAS. There's an internal process here where MPAS are validating. And then there's the yes, this is what happens, or the no, don't go down this route. So this is a way of looking at the processes in a bit more high level. It doesn't contain the same level of detail as the schedules itself, but it makes it slightly easier to digest. And then you can view the schedule if you follow this link on the right-hand side here. And that will take me to the table in the, it's just loading, in the schedule itself. I'm sorry, I've jumped away from it there, haven't I? Okay. So if I go back to the dashboard, next we have, it's just loading. So the next one along, if I'm remembering correctly, is the reports. Let's see, here we go. So everything in EMAR you can link. So you can link it to market participants, you can link it to processes, and then from those you can drive reports. So we've put 3 potentially useful reports here. We can add others. So if you think there might be something you'd like a report on, let us know and we can look about adding it. If I do, for example, market participant by schedule, if you picture the rec schedules, they start with a table that says whether the schedule's mandatory or voluntary for different party types. So what this report does is create a list of who those parties are and which schedules are mandatory and voluntary for them. So reports, not the easiest thing to run. You have to remember the configuration that you want. Is essentially choose the only option, which is EMAR, and then type live. And it will come up with the live. You could run it on an older version if you'd rather, or pre-release when they're available. Run. And what this will do is give me a list of all the market participant types that are defined in those tables and which schedules are voluntary and which are mandatory for them. Here we go. So, for example, if I were a supplier, I could filter this to say supplier. And it will show all the schedules here that are mandatory for suppliers. It's currently only showing 20 per page, but if I do it all, then we can see all of them. So no voluntary ones, just mandatory. And it's by what's written in the rec. So there's domestic suppliers, And we've got electricity suppliers, gas suppliers, and domestics. So there's different types there as well. It's not just simple supplier. And if you want, you can export to Excel there as well. So back to dashboard. Next, we've got release management. So this is a table that shows all the changes that have been implemented in REC and any pre-releases that are available. So we've just had the February release, and you can see here the changes that went into this release. This is the question earlier about the REC portal. So here we have some non-REC changes because these impacted the data specification stored in EMAR. So I'm going to take that away to look at whether we can potentially align the portal and this table here. So we've got all the information consistently. And you can click on release notes to get more information about these changes. And then we've got the other REC documents. So this is a few other items. A most recent addition is the codes roadmap. So this is a document that sets out potential topics to look at as part of the roadmap process. And some of my colleagues are going around the committees and talking about this with parties. So you may have heard about this through other sources, but it's essentially setting out a series of categories. So, for example, looking at REC systems, the themes under those categories, and potential timescales for initiating a review of those areas. So I'm going to stop now for questions.
Yeah, Beth Brown within the Code Manager team has joined me for this month's podcast, which is coming out on Thursday lunchtime, talking about the code roadmap. So search for REC Code Manager on Spotify or your preferred podcast provider from Thursday lunchtime, and you can find out a very short 10-minute overview of what the code roadmap's all about. There's a couple more questions come through on Slido. Actually, one of them's less a question and more just a note. Apparently on the Digital Navigator, the HTML download version is currently version 3.2.0. On the EMAR dashboard, it's correctly HTML version 3.3.0. So there's potentially a misalignment there that might need to be reviewed.
Oh, thank you for flagging that. I will get that updated ASAP.
And the other point, for release info, in order for us to see new data flow and data items, you need the release notes, as there's no mention in the table in EMAR, so the release notes need to be clearer.
Oh, so this is, you'd like more detail. Yeah, I think the release notes give a link to the relevant changes within the respective websites of the codes here, but we are looking at how we can provide better information for non-REC changes for future releases. So we'll take that away.
Fantastic. Otherwise, we've got several people asking to be added to the data specification mailing lists coming through the chat. So worth making a note of those, guys. It might be worth, given that there's so many additions here. I don't know, Ros, whether it might be worth putting something in an upcoming weekly bulletin just to raise awareness of this again, just in case there's more people who might be needing or wanting to be added to that list that aren't currently there.
I will do that, yes. And we'll add all those names in. Excellent.
Fabulous. There are currently no further questions, but I'll give an opportunity for anyone to leave any last questions now or raise their hands. Otherwise, if you are on Slido, particularly if you're on Slido via the link I gave earlier, maybe not through Teams, there is a poll to provide just a bit of feedback about today's session. Do appreciate there's been a few technological problems today, so I do apologise for that, and I'll be seeing what we can do about that to make sure that doesn't happen again in future. So apologies for any failings of technology today, but hopefully we got the gist when we saw the presentations from Ros and JP nice and clearly, and you had the opportunity hopefully to ask all the questions you needed to ask and get those answered as well. As it stands, though, there is no more questions coming through, Ros.
I shall ask a final question then. I get, in terms of using EMAR, have I covered everything you'd like to be able to use EMAR for, or are there any other cases where you think it might be nice that EMAR, if I could do that in EMAR, and you're not quite sure if it could?
perhaps if you have got a point, if you want to raise your hand just to articulate it. Otherwise, perhaps it's a question you might want to get in touch with the team after the session as well.
Yes, we're always very happy to receive feedback. So whatever it is, reach out, tell us, and we'll see what we can do.
All right, fantastic. As I mentioned, and in the absence of any further points or hands raised, this session has been recorded. We'll be making the recording available in the coming couple of days on the Rec portal. We'll send out a link in this week's weekly bulletin as well. Ros and JP have made a note of all these email addresses to be added onto that list. But thank you very much for your engagement today. Thank you to Ros and to JP for the demonstrations as well. I hope you did get some value out of the session, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon at future events. But thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon.
Everyone.
Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.